welcome to another episode of the Meet the Translator podcast series. This episode is called Can You Manage? I'm about to talk to production director Alex Collot about his management experience in a translation agency. He's going to tell us all about his job and what he loves about it, and he's also got some great advice for both for people interested in becoming project managers and also for freelance translators who work or want to work with translation agencies. Enjoy! Hi Alex, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Hi, Dodd. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am doing great. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm really excited to find out more about you and what you do today. You told me that you started off as a translation project manager and now you're working as a production director. So how did you get into these roles and what does your job look like?
Yeah, well, Collot Baca localization was started by me and by Alma Baca. Alma, as some people know, is my mother. In case you didn't know, that's company secret is out there, I guess. So yes, I started as the production director slash project manager. The project manager part was rather a thing that I had to do, since we started as a boutique-sized company. So it was like production direction and also managing the projects that we have. It came as part of the job, I guess. And now, as we have been growing, I have been stepping more and more into the directorial aspect, you could say. And now we have other project managers, and I have handed off the post of managing the projects to them with all the experience that I have acquired over the 8 years that I have been doing this.
How did you sort of get into it? Like, what did you do before you started this company, or like what made you decide to start Collot Baca localization?
Well, before that, I was a student. I started out quite young, but my mother and I, we decided like, hey, we have always been very close, and we decided that it's really the family businesses are usually the strongest if they are well managed. And we decided like, hey, we can really do something as a team. And it was, my mother already had a translation business that she started, many years ago when I was really young. Some people may still know us as a business language solutions. Wow, I haven't said that name in a long time. Yeah, so she already had that, and so we took it from there. I've always been very good at, I have very good grammar in Spanish, which is my mother tongue. We said like, okay, we already have this. Alex, you take on the production aspect, and Alma took over the part of sales and directing the company. So that's how we started working as a team. We started growing, and eventually we stopped doing all of the work ourselves and we started onboarding freelance translators. So that's how we started working. I started like, that's when I started managing the projects. I went from a freelancer myself to directing our translators, still doing some projects myself sometimes, but less and less. And now, managing the translators and being more of a project manager in that aspect.
So you still do a bit of translation yourself as well alongside it, or?
That's a good question. Actually, I haven't done a translation work in, I think, a couple of years now. It's becoming more and more like directorial for me now. And organizing things for the project managers. I don't know if this is going to be a question, but like I'm thinking I sometimes I miss a little bit doing it. Subtitling is very, very fun. I would love to do it even in my free time if I had any. But no, I actually haven't done any translation work myself in a while.
Did it start out as a subtitling company or as a translation company, or like did it just start out all together, subtitling and translation?
We started as a translation company. That's what it was before when Alma started Business Language Solutions. And little by little, we grew, we made more connections, and eventually we had the opportunity of someone teaching me how to subtitle. And well, I took it. Obviously, we saw that as a great opportunity for growth, and I thought that it was really, really interesting. Even up until then, I had never thought like, hey, it's a human who creates the subtitles. Before that point, I never even thought. Some people think it's maybe like a machine, but like the thought never even crossed my mind. I saw the subtitles in movies, and I guess I took it for granted. And so I was taught how to do subtitles, and I trained some of the translators that we had back then. I transmitted the knowledge to them, and we started taking on subtitling projects. And little by little, we drifted in that direction, like as our main focus. And that's what we're doing now, like full time now.
Subtitling is a lot of fun as one of your freelancers. What does a typical day at work look like for you?
If there is such a thing as a typical day. So normally it's wake up 7 in the morning, check my emails to see what we got from the US. We have some of our clients in California. So catch up a little bit with that. Get ready. I like to be ready normally before 10 in the morning. So, I can. One of the things that probably many freelancers have learned is to actually have a schedule. I try as best as I can to follow one, and so yeah, be ready normally by 10 in the morning. Then just take on whatever our clients in Europe start throwing at us, whether it be projects or follow up on, whatever is currently underway. Check on with the project managers, because they send us daily reports on the status of the projects that they're handling. So if anything requires attention, I have a meeting with them and check how things are going, or if they require any assistance or help them handle things if necessary. If not, like, they're very capable. So, and then by the afternoon, that's when our clients in the US start becoming active. And that's when the real fun begins. You know how things in the US are, like they're the most demanding clients. Like, hey, we need this like super quick. Clients in Europe are super chill, like, it's okay, no rush with this. The US like fast, fast, fast. So, we start getting the requests from them, and well, my role now is planning things. So if we get a request for something that's coming ahead, my job now is like, okay, take note of all of the details of the project, all of the guidelines that we have to follow, or any like specific scheduling, anything that is necessary. I take note of that, and I orchestrate it, and then I hand it off to the project managers to hand. And I go to bed hopefully before midnight.
Sounds like quite a long day.
It is. That's how it is when you're in charge, but that's more or less what I would call a normal day.
It's really interesting to hear it from the other side, because obviously as a translator myself, all I have to do is I'll get sent the translation, I just do the translation, send it back. I don't have to worry. And apart from with direct clients, but with agencies, I don't have to worry about all of that.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, what does the process look like from start to finish? So from when you get a new client, they contact you or you contact them or whatever, to actually delivering the work to them. How does that whole process look like?
Well, in very general terms, it's we receive the request, and like internally, we discuss all of the details with the client. We determine what needs to be done, what we have to do, what the project looks like, or what kind of content this is going to be, all the information that we can get. We sort of curate it. We order everything, and we prepare everything in an orderly manner, you could say. And then once the project gets greenlit, I send it off to the project managers. So whichever one is taking, I'm assigning to the project, and then he takes care of contacting the translators. The translators, then you guys do your magic. whatever needs to be translatable gets translated, subtitled, etc., etc. Then we retrieve the files internally, and then we send them off to the client in, whichever preferred method they have. Yeah, that's very like in very, very general terms, that's the process that we follow. There are some things that of course are like, company secrets that I cannot share. Yeah, but like in very like general terms, that's how it is. There's like you say, it is very interesting because there is a lot of planning usually behind projects, especially large ones. There's a lot of like scheduling and and lots of precautions, like preventive measures taken. Also, like, okay, what are we going to do if this person is not available, or maybe if we may be short on people for this language, or especially like depending on the kind of content, like, okay, who do we prefer to handle these kinds of projects, or who is better with documentaries or series.
Mm-hmm.
And with series, when we're talking about series, if there is a glossary already available, and if there isn't, well, we have to create one. A lot of these things have to be prepared
Mm-hmm.
before the project gets sent to the translators. Like, all of this work has been done before before we send the announcement, and before we tell the translators that project is ready to be started.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of, because I always wonder as well, like, what do you do if you agree to do a project for a client and then it turns out like the translators that you were hoping to ask to do it are not available, or if you don't have enough people in the right language pairs, or what if a translator accepts it and then they fall ill or something? Like, how do you deal with it? Because I guess you've agreed to do the project, so you still have to send something back to the client.
Oh, well, of course we have to. Oh, well, that's for us to figure out. Of course we have to. Yeah, like you said, we have committed to deliver to the client, and that is our main priority. It's in terms of details, I would rather avoid. I would rather not give any particular details, but the gist of it is we managed to do it, and we managed to do it with the quality that the client is expecting. If we are short on people, that is our problem, and we have to manage it. And of course, we're not going to go to some agency in India and be like, hey, help us out, or no, we handle things ourselves, and we handle it professionally. Of course, some clients understand that there are contingencies, or there are unexpected situations. One time we had not one time, more than once, we've had translators who had appendicitis.
Oh, really?
Midway through a project. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine that? And oh boy, yeah, that is a situation that you can be like, why do you get sick?
Like, how dare you?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like it's a human factor, so we have to handle that. Of course, we have to we handle it with the client properly, and we have to like go and reassign it with someone else from the team.
I guess you have to have like a big enough pool of translators to be able to have backup translators for things. Like, when you assign a project to a translator, do you often have another translator in mind just in case they're not available, or if they get sick or something? Or do you not really think about that until the time comes that you would need to?
Well, indeed, yes. The secret is to have a big enough pool, to have enough people to as a backup, in case the one person that you have in mind is not available. What we do is we do have in mind always, like, what if the person that we would normally prefer is not available for this task or for this job. We are constantly looking for people. We're constantly recruiting. So we like to have a team as large, as big as possible, because we work with freelancers, and of course there is always the possibility that they're going to be all busy. We have had situations where, like, in a team of like 30 people, no one is available. Yeah, no, it's a situation that we don't want to be in. So of course we are constantly bringing in more and more people to cover our butts.
What's your favorite thing about being a production director?
Oh, I would say it's being able to interact with so many cultures. Like on a personal level, I love languages. I one of the things that I do on my spare time whenever I get any is just like, okay, I'll open a new tab and research like whatever new language that I learned about, or like I just think, hey, Hausa is a language. I wonder how it works. So I'll look it up. And having the opportunity to interact with people who are native to these languages and who come from these cultures that are so vastly different from mine, that's just, I don't know, that's exciting for me. When we require to add a new language to our pool, like going through that whole onboarding process, that for me is very exciting to be like, oh, we're going to be working with this new language, and looking at the subtitles written in a completely unfamiliar script. To me, that's pretty cool. It's almost like a childish thing, to be looking at something pretty or something cool or something interesting. But that's one of my two favorite things about being the production director. The second one is when things are clear in a project and when everything is very like straightforward, I love planning out things. I am a very methodical person. I like things being like, right, and everything in its place. And I like arranging things in such a way that they will flow out smoothly. And that's one part of my job. For example, like, writing processes for new projects or for new clients or for new kinds of projects. So, writing out the process that we're going to follow is like, I don't know, it's like almost like building a puzzle.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting that you say that, because I'm thinking about because you're also an artist, aren't you, on the side? And I'm thinking about, I've seen your artwork on Instagram, and it it goes quite well with what you're saying, that you're quite a methodical person. Everything, the way that how your art looks like is.
I had forgotten that you know my art, and I was thinking, as I was saying that, I was thinking like, yeah, I also apply this to my art.
I can definitely tell that. So obviously, the past year has been like, there's been a pandemic. Have things been different for you? Has your job been different? How has everything changed?
Well, it's a little bit hard to tell, because the main differences have been from outside, like not for us personally, not for me personally, but like at first, the amount of work that we got from clients, of course, there was a decrease for a moment, while the whole world figured out this mess. Then also with the translators, well, some of them were not fully available, or especially going back to this guy who had appendicitis, like, in his words, try to imagine being in a hospital during times of a pandemic, like, it's craziness. But yeah, to be honest, it hasn't actually been that different for us. We deal with freelancers, and all of our work is like, how do you say this, like on a distance, or by distance. With the client, we don't deal with people like personally, really.
Mm-hmm.
So like unlike a grocery store or something where people physically come in, like we haven't seen ourselves like affected that way. In my work specifically, like hasn't actually been that much different.
Are you working from home? And were you working from home before anyway, I guess, and everything is via email? And so do all of your project managers also work sort of from wherever they are as well? You don't actually have like a team together in an office?
Correct. Yeah, the project managers each work from home.
It's kind of the same for me. Like, I was working from home anyway, so not an awful lot changed for my work.
Yeah.
For anyone who's listening to this and is thinking that they want to be a project manager or go down that sort of career path, do you have any advice for them?
Put everything in writing. The more, the more organized you can be with your work, the better. One thing that I have found to be a very successful step is to create little events on my calendar for deliveries. That is super helpful. So many things coming to mind also. But I think the number one thing would be like focus on being very well organized. Put everything in writing. Each company works differently. I don't know about how other companies have their project managers handle the work, but I guess either the company provides you with a specialized software to organize your projects, or if they don't, just take matters into your own hands and have a little Google Sheets document where you have everything in writing, where you write down what projects you're working on, because things can get mixed up. Important information can be lost, or you can forget about something if you're working just from memory. So put everything in writing, and if it is set in stone, you can just go and check it, and everything comes to mind. You can even remember yes, that's right, they needed the document in this format, or we have to do this little thing differently. Those little things go a long way.
I feel like that's I could probably take some of your advice as well, even as obviously I'm not a project manager, but so often I'm having to go back and scroll through emails to be like, wait, what did they say I have to do? Or
yes.
Actually, I'm going to ask you one of the questions that somebody sent in that relates to this, because somebody was asking, what tools do you use to stay organized? Do you have any tools that you'd recommend? Or
we work with Una, which is a translation project management tool. It's specially developed for managing translation projects. So that by itself does the trick. We take note of everything. All of our projects are noted in Una, and we can follow up with them. We can track the translator's progress. Aside from that, we also have, I have my trustworthy calendar to set myself up reminders or important things to take note of. And aside from that, our project managers also use their sticky notes to take note of important things, little things aside from Una, but Una is the number one main tool that we use. And actually, I would like to go back a little bit to what I advise for people who are thinking of becoming project managers, because this is a thing that maybe some people don't really pay too much attention to, or not many people may have in mind. But as a project manager, you are the link between the client and the translators. So focus on your communication. Always make sure to relay the important information from the client to the translator, and from the translator to the client. There are, of course, we're all human. Either the client can omit some information, or the translators might overlook something. So keeping in constant communication with both ends is extremely important, so that the client will receive what they need, what they want and what they need, which in the end is what we're working for. So for instance, even if the client gives you a project, if the client wants, I don't know, something translated from English into French, as if the translator doesn't ask for a formality table, how each character addresses each other. In French there's tu and vous. So if the translator doesn't ask about this, you may be quick enough to think oh, okay, I'm going to think about this in advance. Hey, do you have a formality table for this series? Little things like that. Attention to detail, and making sure that the translators have the information that they need. And when the translators ask something, to be able to relay that information to the client, in a way that they can understand, because not all of the clients are very well versed in our language. So sometimes just doing a straight up like copy paste of the translator's question is not really going to do. You know, you may have to do a little rewording or changing or putting things in a way like in vernacular, you know, in a way that the client will understand and will be able to reply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting that you're saying that, because as a translator, I've worked with, obviously with agencies, but I also work with direct clients. And it's also something that I have to do when I'm asking agencies, and whether I'm asking them questions that are then going to have to be like, I have like my one contact point who's the project manager, and then they have to ask the client or whatever, and it goes backwards and forwards. But with direct clients, it's, I can, with some of my direct clients, I even have access to their whole team, so I can ask whichever person on the team is the relevant person to ask, and not just like the person in charge of the localization project. But I do have to like be like, okay, are they actually going to understand what I'm talking about? Because I know that they don't really know anything about translation or subtitling a lot of the time. So it's interesting.
In a way, the project manager may even be acting as a translator or an interpreter between the client and the translators.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, actually. Is there anything that you wish that translators knew with regards to when they're working with project managers or agencies? Is there anything you wish that translators knew?
Interesting question. Anything that I wish the translators knew? I would probably think better things that I wish that the project managers knew. We may go back to that question later, because I may have to think a little bit about that one, because that is a very interesting question, and I know I can feel that there's something there that I would like to say, but nothing comes to mind right at this moment. But very good question.
I just thought, because like something that you might not want to directly tell translators, but that you were like, oh, I wish that they knew about this, or I wish that they would just.
Oh, you know what? Yes. One thing that is coming to mind. Well, obviously, in the medium that we work in, you know, I've had many people who are like, you know, either new to the team, well, mostly, yeah, with new people who, you know, we send them an announcement for a new project, and they're like, can I look at the materials? Can I look at the materials? In the medium where we work, like, that is a very touchy subject, and we rarely, if ever, like actually never, we can never share the materials with the translators before giving them a confirmation of the project. So I wish the translators could understand this a little bit better, that, well, you know, of course, everything is protected by NDA, and we cannot just be sharing, you know, sending around materials. I think that this would be an important thing to keep in mind. And of course, you know, naturally, as a translator, you need to know what you're going to be working with. You know, we are well aware of that. So something that is better to ask, instead of, you know, asking to have this material sent to you, like, you know, maybe ask for more information, like what kind of content it's going to be, if it's an episodic, or, you know, try to, I guess, try to think what you would like to know about the content, or what you would like to verify if you were to watch the video, and put that into questions. You know, naturally, if maybe the title cannot be shared right away, but, you know, you can ask like, hey, what kind of series is this? Is it heavy on dialogue? Is it like a political drama where I'm going to have to research the whole political system in the US? You know, yeah. I think I had something else in mind. Oh, yes. I only had one instance of this happening, but I guess it would be worth it mentioning. So many translators, I'm not sure if you own like your own subtitling software, like Easy Titles or WinCaps or something like that. Yeah. Well, that's you know, that's very common, and these are all like extremely good software. One time I had someone who was like a little, maybe not open, we could say, to working with an online tool such as Una. You, of course, have made a big investment in this software. I know that, you know, Easy Titles and WinCaps, like, licenses are not cheap, because they're like very specialized software, and they're very good software. And, you know, like, translators want to, of course, favor using the tools that they have invested in. and some of them may not be very like open to the idea of working in an online platform such as Una. But some clients prefer this method of working because when they send us the materials, like they stay in-house. The translators don't download anything. And of course, we trust the translators as very extremely responsible people, but this is a preventive measure. We don't know if someone is going to get hacked or if their computer gets stolen or, what have you. So this is a way where we prevent material from being like, what's the word, leaked, So I would advise maybe like be open to working with other tools, I guess, with online tools.
Yeah. I mean, I think like working with agencies, it's like most of the agencies I work with, they want you to use the online tools, and it makes sense. It's just like with direct clients where you need to use your own. So like I feel like it's understandable. I mean, working with the online tools. What you said earlier about asking for the material, I completely get that, because I've definitely done that before, where I've said, can I have a sample of the material? But it's usually if there's not enough information provided, then I'll be like, I need to know more. But a lot of the time with subtitling, it's if there's no transcript, I'm more concerned about the quality of the thing, or I just want to check they don't have a weird accent, or they're not like mumbling or anything like that, because I find like when there's no transcript, the hardest part of subtitling is being like, what are they actually saying?
Yes.
Like what I don't want to accept the project and then be like, I can't actually understand anything that's being said, even though it's in like my source language. You can't always understand.
No, I absolutely
everything. Like I don't understand everything in English that people say.
I absolutely understand that. That is actually very yes, that is definitely understandable for you as well. Sometimes what we do in those cases is allow the translators access to the project in Una, just so they play it and so they can get a little familiar with it. But we also try to like cover our backs in case like a bad surprise may come up, where, for example, we had a sort of a surprise with a project that the client is French, and they told us like, okay, we need this project subtitled from Dutch into French. We're like, okay, cool, no problem. But then it turns out that it was not Dutch, but it was Flemish. I don't speak Dutch, so I had no way of knowing it. Neither did the project manager. And we didn't find out until the translator was working on it. And he said like, hey, these people have an extremely thick accent and they're talking through a Skype call and I cannot make out what they're saying. So yeah, we will always have those kinds of surprises, which is, also understandable, as unfortunately, as good as our processes may be, there will always be those little like instances where something like unexpected slips through. That is also very understandable what you're saying there, especially I would say with like interview material. Like you want to be careful with those, and when we get interview materials, like we at least at first we screen the materials and we make sure that the quality of the audio is good and that it's clear, and that there are not like many people involved, or try to give some base information so that the translators can have an idea at first. If it really comes to that, like, yeah, we can allow the translators some temporary access to it to listen to it.
That makes sense. I guess you just want to have it like, so everybody is happy with what they're working on, and everyone knows what they're doing and can actually do it.
Correct.
When you need new translators, when you're looking for new freelance translators, where do you look for them, and how do you decide which translators to add to your pool?
Well, normally our first go-to is pros.com. Just a quick question: is that how you say it? Because I've heard people calling it pros. I used to call it Proz.
I mean, I think I call it pros, but I'm also not 100% sure.
They may want to have that on their intro page, maybe. But yeah, that's our first go-to. It's an extremely good platform. It's the most complete that I have seen so far. They are really thorough with their processes. They do everything manually. They have people checking constantly. and it's the site that allows for the most amount of information that you can gather from a person. And but we also use commonly Translators Cafe, and there's another site that is not as known, but we have found a couple of good people there, called translationdirectory.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also, another tool that we have also found extremely useful is just LinkedIn. We sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
look for people on LinkedIn who may either not be easy to find on pros, or just to like do some sort of a filtered search, and we get in touch with them directly. Now, the people that we usually favor, that was the other part of the question, right?
Yeah, how do you choose which translators to add to your pool?
Yeah. Well, usually the people that are the most, like, you could say, out there, meaning people who have lots of who offer many ways to contact them. Like, if you have a website, that's a very good indication for us. Giving references, like, people that we can get in touch with to ask about, the work that you have done for them. People who also give examples of what they have done in the particular area that we're looking for. For instance, sometimes we post job announcements, and we will get people who are just like regular text translators when we specifically said that we're looking for subtitlers, just like, come on. Or people who say like, okay, I'm interested in this subtitling job, and then they send us their CV, but it doesn't have any mentions of subtitling experience. So we choose people who have like good communication skills, and being able to put clearly for us how you fit the job. That is a good communication skill. Again, people who give us like their contact, like, can reach me by phone or Skype or any other way. That's also good to know, because contingencies or any sort of like emergency, anything that could happen, like, it's good to know that we can get in touch directly with the translator. Of course, we're not going to call you at 2 a.m, but for quick communication, especially, email may take sometimes a little bit too long, or it may be that we need an emergency like change requested by the client. Those little things. Like, it's a relief for us to know that we can count on this person, and that we can get in touch with them. So credentials, like, having studied translation, or having studied anything that is related to the particular field that we are looking for. We have some people who have studied cinematography who don't have like formal training as translators, but part of their job as a I don't know, a producer or an editor has presented them with the opportunity to develop subtitling as a skill. We also look into that. And well, that's I guess that's the main things that we keep in mind.
It's interesting to hear. Like, I think it will be useful because a lot of translators listen to my podcast, so I think like from their perspective as well, it's useful to know like what.
Yeah. You know what? One thing that we really like is when people contact us. Like, it's okay to have like your introduction letter, but most of the times it's very reassuring when you get a message from someone like addressing a specific project. Saying like, hey, I saw this job posting where you're looking for people for this and this and this. I have done this and this, in this area, and just giving us the sort of like acknowledgement that you read through the details of the job posting. That's already like a very reassuring thing. Like, okay, this person takes the time to read the guidelines and what is needed of the project.
Yeah. I mean, because then you can, I guess, know that when you send them a project, they're going to actually read the guidelines of that project and do the work
exactly,
in the same
way. Exactly.
I had a question as well, which I've just forgotten. Sorry.
Keep everything in writing.
I need to start taking your advice. When you sort of communicate with your translators via email, like how I was just thinking because some like with the different project managers that I work with, I know like some prefer to stay very formal and they're like, dear blah blah blah, like can you, I don't know, yeah, just speak in a very formal way. And then some it's like you're sending emojis and being like happy Monday, like this kind of thing. Like does it really like make a difference to you? Like how do you prefer to communicate with translators? And
well, no, that is actually a very good question. I for us, we try to keep things friendly, but professional. That's pretty much our company personality. I also like to wish people a happy Monday. It's we're not like lawyers or something like that. We don't need to call each other Mrs. and Mr. It's being professional doesn't mean necessarily being extremely formal. You can be friendly and also like have very good communication. I like to see communication that will be like that would feel like rounded, like complete. Personally, in my emails, I always start like, hi, hello, and I hope you're doing well, things like that. At least like some introduction that keeps it professional, even if the rest of the email is going to be like, a little bit more friendly. So I guess keeping a tone of like similar to that, like for me personally, helps like, calm things down a little bit and being like, okay, here's what we have to do, but we're still people, and we can act nice to each other.
I guess it's good to be approachable on both ends, because it's not as scary if you like for translators, like it's not as scary having to ask like loads of questions about a project, like, oh, is that a silly question or this kind of thing. But if like you're kind of friendly with the project manager, then it's like, oh, I'm sure they're not gonna like they're not gonna be offended by me asking like a whole bunch of questions or something like that.
Yes, extreme formality can sometimes be a little like intimidating.
Yeah, we are all just human at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's also another advice I would give to people thinking of being project managers. Like, I guess this would be probably better for translators, but like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, you may think it's a silly question, but in the end, it may turn out to be something really important. Yeah, and again, that's also good communication. Just if something is important, you think it's important enough to like think about it. Like, it's no problem if you ask. Most people don't mind, honestly. Thank you very much for having me. It's this was a very interesting thing, and very, very nice to like externalize some thoughts that are part of like my daily life, or things that I maybe take for granted. I hope this is helpful for the people listening, both translators and people who are already project managers or maybe interested in becoming project managers.
Thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it, and I've learned a lot as well.
I'm glad. Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you. Thanks again to Alex for joining me on this podcast episode. It's been really interesting hearing about the management side of translation. If you want to get in touch with Alex or check out Collot Backer Localization, check out the show notes. Let me know what you thought of this episode and send me an email at meetthetranslator@gmail.com.